right, we see from Mammy now, Quabashon, Edinburgh Possible TVGH, and then they can have Possible TVGH. And if you can see a also by Jabber and her video, no show you like and comment and subscribe. We are no share, and that's why I recommend the channel. No, I'm a Uni be an hour down for the any videos, maybe I share. When you say the can't need it, a man on same way, way, my gun and money, a domusuko, a corner, quite shaping there, their bread, your subscribers, and I say, your tier 4, and I say, your chef for me. Look, I say, Yamiad me and Yaba could be a trendy information super highway news, and any difference when him said, and me person say what I know. Your more rem, the intent, some audio.
Of Assin North are perturbed by the lack of representation for them in Ghana's House of Legislature. The constituents say the development has slowed down progress in the constituency, even as they feel being denied from making input in decision making. This comes after the Supreme Court restrained James Jachi Jr. from performing his duties pending legal issues surrounding his citizenship. Metro News' Akwesiado has more in the following report.
His candidature received massive support from both NPP and NDC, since, according to the constituents, the only thing they were interested in was finding a focus-driven person to lead the constituency. Perhaps the Assin North constituents have much confidence in the Kwesons. The late James Jachi Kwesons Sr., father of the embattled MP, according to history, performed creditably well as DCE for the area and still has a beaming track record when it comes to visible developments. However, nearly 2 months ago, Mr. James Jachi Jr. was restrained from performing his duties as a legislator by the Supreme Court, pending legal issues surrounding his true allegiance to the country, as it is being argued that he had not successfully renounced his Canadian citizenship as at the time he filed at the Electoral Commission to contest for the Assin North seat. Constituents say they were really struck hard by the decision of the Apex Court and their hopes in getting development completely jeopardized. They say several interventions that were being championed by the MP have suddenly grounded to a halt. They are even more disturbed that their voices cannot be echoed in matters concerning the country.
Papa, you know, you did tell him when he did be far. Papa, no one will say, "One mobile day, or how about to Papa so, and the assemble to so, and my baby Papa no want to be more a same. But same man, if you about 2 years, a gidia in ya, Vima, 2 abanama Papa no. You himself, Papa, by so, you said near any woman and no casana, no who said, Asima give it to Pong. And so your friend, dear, you see. Say, oh, Anna, oh, Vria, Papa, so you won't have.
Ya queen, ya tutu to the woman say, who's a mobile, but the young, if we throw queen, Papa. It is Rabans won't tell any me.
Eh, pa, me empina ya meofa, obejina, obetimia bibi abwa, as
to the woman say, who's a mobile, but the young, if we throw queen, Papa. It is Rabans won't tell any me.
Eh, pa, me empina ya meofa, obejina, obetimia bibi abwa, asemai, enso, omuzo mumpeno.
As people suffering by the invocation of Article 94 Clause 2A, which states that a person shall not be qualified to be a member of parliament if he, A, owes allegiance to a country other than Ghana. Constituents of Assin North believes that provision is archaic and needs to be repealed. They cannot fathom why a man born to 2 Ghanaians and with a flaming passion and desire to develop his hometown is now restrained simply because he ever passionately became a Canadian.
Said you will mean to me, where the mobile me to me. In Crassi be Papa ni Juma, do you hear pipe or boano? Do you hear iron sheet or boano? Do you hear cement? And you know, be bring to Papa dear, ni would you with Muse or boy.
As of now, as we speak, we don't have a representation in Parliament. Then we are lacking something big. We are lacking something big. And so I'm saying that yes, this situation is going to affect Assin North constituents when it comes to the sharing of the national cake.
How be a Maya Nanka, a quain punkenyes in it here. A quain ever to about no me say a bay. Yet 2 about Papani Winnie and Umuja Toho. What has started? Tinacha say Assin North Yano, Adum Bonibi Waha. Adum Papa ni etirim wa ha. De obeya ade ne man kwan no onye.
Na me ma MPP fo ne nye omo de se yeni nam sini e wo pan mpuntu no ma de ade omo e ha ye. Because omo ye so ma anhwe ni ne se omo anhwe ni ya me kan si su pise anhwe ni ya 2024 Assin North yen to aba.
Should the Supreme Court enforce the July 21, 2021 annulment of the Assin North parliamentary results ruling, the constituency shall have a by-elections conducted for them, following which they are able to have a representation in Parliament. Until then, they continue to lack representation and have no person to champion core developmental agenda within Assin Breku, the capital, and its adjoining communities.
Let's to stay on this issue and have a conversation on the back of this, and I've been joined by Zoom political analyst Jonathan Asante Ochre for more on this. Jonathan, welcome to the show. The people in the area are clearly not happy with the situation. Do they have a case?
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to your viewers. Thank you very much, and good afternoon to your viewers. Certainly they do. If you look at issues that have happened elsewhere in the country, like, for example, Mr. Peter Mewu's constituency, you can talk of Techiman South and so on and so forth. So if you look at that particular situation and the court said that in these constituencies they need representation, then, I mean, on what grounds? I mean, we are almost 2 months in the fray that the people of Assin North should be denied representation. It just does not make any logical sense. And I think that issues of this nature, bordering on, as it were, constitutional interpretation, I think that the High Court might have erred, and then it surprises me that the Supreme Court in itself will uphold, that particular ruling of the High Court, especially when it borders on constitutional interpretation.
Right. The law is a bit not clear on this current situation, because assuming the person who is an MP at the moment had died, a by-election would have been held by now. But here we are, no by-elections, and he has been barred from going to Parliament to perform his duties as well.
Yeah. If you look at the situation and listen to the citizens or the indigenous of that particular place or that constituency, it tells you that these people are just in need of basic things of life. Roofing sheets, on tarred roads, barred roads, and so on and so forth. So if you listen to the worries of the indigenous, it tells you that they are really, really worried. And what they need is not something extravagant. It's just basic things of life. So if we use the court, as it were, to deny the representation of the people, I think that we are just being unfair to the masses. And you see, these masses do not really have representation, as it were. They can go to Parliament to represent themselves. They will have to give the mandate to someone. But you see, it is so surprising that somebody who has lived, who will just deny 32 years of his citizenship with Canada and decide to come back home. What sacrifice could be more than this? So it's sometimes illogical, and it just does not make sense to some of us that will be using court gymnastics, as it were, to deny the people of Assin North. I think we need to come again, and if nothing at all, we need to expedite, because that is what the Supreme Court said. So how come we are still using this same court gymnastics, as it were, to frustrate the people of Assin North and to frustrate the MP himself? There is something wrong with this country.
It's been over 2 months now since his seat was declared almost vacant and he was prevented from his duties as an MP. In your own knowledge and estimation, what do you think should be done in this situation?
Well, I know that the embattled MP is still using the same court processes, as it were, to ensure that he goes back to Parliament to represent the people. I think that the Supreme Court, in its own wisdom, should be consistent in this particular issue. I don't want to sound prejudicial, but in a rule of law and a democracy, what the MP has started to do and is continuously doing is the best way to go, because you just cannot use gun, as it were, to get your way. So we need to move forward. We need to move on with this particular issue, because if you look at the basics of the issue, I think that it shouldn't take enough time on our hands, as it were, to deal with this. Let me ask you a simple question. Imagine he had not won the elections. Would this have become an issue? No. 2,